Pickle, the first week plus a UTEP game of the college football season. The college football season is in the books, and there's a lot to talk about. But I think the team that everybody across the state of Texas is talking about is the Texas State Bobcats. Let's go to the hotline, Pickle. Let's welcome in the host of Squarin Around, the Texas State podcast on the Republic Football Podcast Network. It's our friend Jakob Rodriguez. Jacob, how are you?
What's up, guys? Thanks for having me on.
Have you recovered from Saturday?
I hope not.
I think I didn't even process it for like a full 24 to 48 hours. And then I was finally able to like breathe again, like truly, like I thought every time Baylor scored, I was like, well, here it goes. It's been fun, but this is where we find out what this team is made of. And it never happened.
That's actually a great place to start, because I was wondering from your perspective. I was watching the game like a lot of people, and I kept waiting for the other shoe to drop, because I think we've seen a lot of these kind of, let's call it G5 versus P5 games, where the G5 team plays really well, but then the Power 5 team, especially at home, they find a way, they figure some things out, and they come away with a win. When was it that you felt like, okay, Texas State might actually win this stinking thing and might actually beat Baylor in Waco?
The fourth quarter with like 8 minutes left to go, I was like, oh my gosh, we're going to do it. We're going to do it. There's like no way. There's like mathematically impossible, Like, I had to make sure, because I've seen this team go 2-10 so many times. So I guess, like, what do you call that? Stockholm syndrome or something? Like, yeah, I was scared for sure throughout the entire thing.
So it really wasn't until very late, when they had like a 2-score lead and the ball in the fourth quarter, that you felt like, okay, Texas State's going to take care of it.
Well, I did, because I wrote the recap. I wrote whatever Ish wants me to do, basically. But
well, that's where
I did write
wrong.
that headline, or whatever I turned into Ish at least. I wrote that headline first, and that was in the first quarter. So I was pretty bullish early on, but it was a matter of whether or not we could hang on. And not only did Texas State hang on, like they controlled that entire game, which I don't think anybody expected.
I think that's the real surprise here. It is obviously an upset that Texas State beat Baylor, but I think the real shock is just how that Texas State was pretty clearly the better team in that game. It wasn't fluky. It wasn't one or two plays. It was being emphatic in the way that they played the game. When you take a look back now at that game, was there one or two things in particular that really surprised you as far as Texas State's performance?
The amount of drops Ashton Hawkins had, and I know that's going to be corrected. He was beating himself up on the sidelines. I think he had like 2 or 3. They were looking for the big ball. Like I think Drew Donnelly, the fastest guy on the team, ran out, sprinted out to beat everybody, and then he had a drop too. Ashton, same thing, until they hooked up eventually. But yeah, that was the most surprising. Aside from our defense being like insanely electric within like 30, that was, I've never even seen us really convert third or fourth downs before. So there's a lot of firsts for me, to be honest.
The other thing that for me, and I want to see if you share this as well, I was really surprised at how well Texas State stopped the run. This was a portion of the defense where we had concerns. Front seven, we thought the linebackers be okay, but the front seven, especially going up against a Big 12 offensive line, I know one of the things I was thinking was, are they going to get pushed around? Did it surprise you how sturdy they were up front?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and that's kind of like what Baylor's known best for, right? Like being super big inside and being able to do whatever they want, basically. And so when we were able to do that for a whole fourth quarter, 4 quarters, I was mesmerized, to say the least.
Talking with Jakob Rodriguez, the host of Squarin Around on the Republic Football Podcast Network here on Texas Football Today. Get involved in the conversation at #TFToday. The other guy we got to talk about, probably the star of the show coming out of this, was TJ Finley, the quarterback for Texas State. He goes 22 of 30, 298 yards, 3 touchdowns, perhaps most importantly, no interceptions on the year. Took care of the football. What, now that you've had a little bit of time to digest it, what is your takeaway from what you saw from TJ Finley in his debut for the Bobcats?
Well, I guess I owe your audience an apology. If you remember, like a couple months ago, I came on here and I was like, Malik Hornsby's our guy. Turns out I was only like 50% right. It was like a toss up right until the end. And, they gave Malik or TJ the starting job and then he just dominated, So credit to Malik because I heard nothing but, he handled it in such a professional manner. But just being able to see TJ, well, first of all, he's huge. He's gigantic. He shook my hand after the press conference. And he's one of the biggest people I've ever seen in my life. But just his poise under pressure and, not being hit basically too. That was like the first time he'd played in a real game before, for I guess whatever Auburn or LSU game he had played in the last time. But to see him in real pressure and real big moments, getting the job done, that was pretty cool.
Jakob Rodriguez is squaring around. Join us here on Texas Football Today. So now that's a lot of positive to come out of the game against Baylor. Let's get greedy. When you take a look back, what are obviously you're Texas State's 1-0. Everyone's feeling good. GJ Kinney, he's the talk of Texas. What are you looking for as far as improvement is concerned? What do you want to see take the next step as the Bobcats move forward?
I guess taking the next step, just like ensuring like what was kind of wonky, just like making sure TJ can hold the ball when he does take hits inside. Or we had like a weird snap where, the ball came out too high and TJ punched it midair. It was very athletic play. He fell on it too, so it saved it. But yeah, I guess just shoring up all that stuff. And then, I want to see Ashton Hawkins get more involved. That's our guy. That's my ride or die on the team. But yeah.
And finally, they're riding high. The Bobcats riding high, and now they will ride high into San Antonio to take on UTSA 2:30 p.m. Saturday on ESPN Plus. UTSA is a 12.5-point favorite at home here, coming off of a loss at Houston last week. I know that this is a big game for everybody involved. We've got a great piece up on TexasFootball.com from Mike Craven about the relationship between G.J. Kinney and Jeff Traylor. When you take a look at Texas State's game at UTSA, what's the key one or two keys to the game for the Bobcats to pull off what would be another upset on the road?
Yeah. Well, I think there's nothing scarier than a Jeff Traylor scorned, to be honest, right? Like, that guy's scary. This is the Anakin and Obi-Wan game, kind of. You read Traylor's story, they got an insane, story together, and just, like, the relationship that they've built, they've talked about it. I'm sure that's all they're going to talk about in the moments leading up to this game. That's the question, right? It's like kind of like last week when GJ's brother was on the team. That's what everybody was asking him, too. So, yeah, I think the keys to success really are just trying to contain the guy who's been able to make magic in San Antonio for forever, right? Frank Harris, who's going to be looking to like resurrect himself basically after 3 interceptions last week. He's not going to do that again. So the Bobcats have to do what they did last week and play like a really clean game of football and then kind of just lean into what they've done best. Just take shots downfield and take chances too.
He's Jakob Rodriguez. He's the host of the Squarin Around, the exuberant Texas State podcast on the Republic of Football Podcast Network. Subscribe to the Republic of Football Podcast Network feed. Jakob, appreciate your time. Hope you had a good time last weekend, and hope you have a good time this weekend too. It will be a blast. Thank you, Tep. There he goes. Jakob Rodriguez, host of Squarin Around, the Texas State podcast on the Republic of Football Podcast Network. And I'm glad that he kind of shared the same thought as I did of like, all right, like Baylor's going to figure this out, right? Like they're going to like Texas State's going to fold, right? And they just never did.
And I think that looking at it being like the real week 1 of college football season, if you were keeping up with scores just across the nation, there was a lot of that. You look up and Texas is only up by 6, or you look and Alabama is only up by 5 or 7 or whatever, That's a normal week 1 feeling. I think you add the fact on top of that it was Texas State and they're prone to do that in the past through any week of the season, and it made it even more, oh my God. It was really shocking. Really and truly. And I think that what you saw, I mean,
I don't want to put words in his mouth, but like it really wasn't until Texas State or Baylor's driving. It's 42-31 with about 4 minutes left, but Baylor's knocking on the door. They're on the 5-yard line, and it wasn't until Sawyer Robertson got picked off in the end zone.
Yep.
And Texas State then has the ball up 11 points with 4 minutes to go, and you're like, oh, they're really going to do it.
Yeah, like when he said, like the math started mathing. Oh my God, this is a substantial lead with the ball.
It's the first ever win for Texas State over a Power 5 opponent, and certainly the biggest win in their FBS history. They obviously had an illustrious FCS history, but
yes.
As an FBS program and in G.J. Kinney's first debut, what a way to start as the Texas State Bobcats are 1-0. We appreciate Jakob Rodriguez hopping on with us.
Thanks so much for watching that video. If you would like more and to be notified when they come out, go ahead and click that subscribe button right down there. You can also watch Texas Football Today every day live at noon on TexasFootball.com, Facebook, Twitch, and right here on YouTube. For more of the best coverage of Texas football in the Lone Star State, go to TexasFootball.com/subscribe.